Boom. Share. And
Oh, man.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stuart Sorkin with Business and Legal Advisors, aligning your personal and business goals for a successful future. While I'm an attorney and a CPA with a master's in tax, I have two sort of unique skill sets, and I approach M&A at a lot earlier stage than most attorneys because I'm working with trying to help clients maximize their value. The two areas is that in 1983, I started the tax application software division for Coopers & Lybrand and built it to 13 people in 4 years. So I've actually built a department in a new business. So I have that experience. And secondly, because of my age, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. And what I mean by that is that I started in law before people really specialized. And I have done estate planning, asset protection, M&A work, corporate tax planning, etc. And because of that, it gives me a broader view of what we look at. And what we are looking at here is, just on a basis, is what's the market today for exit strategy? Exit planning today, based on some research I've done. Oh, before I start, I also want to say this seminar was designed to be over an hour. When I did it for BEI, I shaved some of the slides off, but I may be going a little fast. But please, if you have a question, send it to Lamont in the chat, and I will try to answer it as we go along because I don't want to get too far ahead on anyone's question. Market today is estimated to be $35 trillion between now and 2042 and could be as high as $70 trillion. To put that in perspective, the entire GNP of the United States is only $26 trillion. Interest rates have slowed the market, but with interest rates coming back down, the market activity. But that hasn't affected a lot in the M&A world, as we were talking about in our breakout session. The market is very hot. Part of that is there's probably $2.3 trillion of private equity money sitting around. There's also more ability because of companies looking at C corporations, et cetera, with doing more creative type financing of deals through equity and other things. But sustained growth can only be accomplished if you set goals which are alignable, achievable, and measurable with accountability. And that's where many owners fail. Come on. There we go. Concept. Every owner will exit his business. He will sell it in one of 6 ways and only one of 6 ways. He will sell it to family. He will sell it to management. He will sell it to a third party. He becomes an absentee owner. The business gets liquidated or he dies. If you do not choose one of the first 4, the last 2 will happen. However, one of the biggest issues that I face in dealing with clients is that most people's greatest strength also can become their greatest weakness. With entrepreneurs, most of them succeed because of the belief in themselves. However, the problem is that once they reach that a certain level of success, they don't believe anyone else can do as well as them, and they don't necessarily want to take coaching. But the issue is that if they don't transfer the intellectual property and the value to management and learn and create a delegable team, it's going to hurt the valuation of the business. In looking at from the personal side, because I think you have to divide up and make sure that the personal side and the business side are truly aligned. And if you have partners, then you've got to get the partners to align. But the first question is get a client to work that I work with is, get him to get his Monte Carlo analysis done. I'm assuming everyone here knows the basic concept of Monte Carlo analysis will tell you within a 90 to 95% certainty of what you need to have a successful retirement. So you need to know your target number. You need to figure out what your time frame is. What are you going to do with the sales process?
I'm listening to this presentation.
What are you doing? What are you going to do with the sales proceeds? Example, if you are a serial entrepreneur or there may be risk post liabilities, are you going to do some form of creditor protection for the assets when you sell? Those are things you need to look at. What are you going to do when you retire? The idea that I have known a lot of entrepreneurs who have retired too early without any idea of what they were going to do post. It is really key to work with your clients on helping them decide what they're going to do when they retire, because it's problematic. Mm-hmm. How does the entrepreneur deal with an unplanned exit for the business? What happens to the business if you get hit by a bus? How do you deal with that? Well, if you've got partners, you can deal with it that way. If you've got a management team, you can deal with it that way. But what happens if you don't have a management team and you don't have partners? How can you deal with an unplanned exit? Well, I've had several clients who've been in situations where they're maybe in remission from cancer. So the concept of what we did for several of them, they had key employees they trusted to run the business, but they knew these employees probably didn't want to buy the business, nor did they have the resources to buy the business. So an exit with that would not work. But what we did is we signed each of those employees to an employment contract that provided that if the owner made a planned or unplanned exit from the business, that if they stayed 12 months after that, they would get a bonus of 50% of their W-2 income.
Wow.
Now, that founder was a lot more comfortable that these people were going to stay if something did happen to him, and his family then would have the time to figure out how to sell the business and deal with the business. Now, the last situation is what happens if you don't have a key employee? Well, my view is that generally that's a small business. And in a small business situation, probably the best person to run your business if you aren't there is maybe your biggest competitor. So I have had situations where I have gotten two competitors together to do cross buyouts on using insurance. Each of them pays for their own insurance, but it's a way to transition the business if you are a sole owner and you really don't have a management team. This works real well potentially in franchise situations of talking to other franchisees. What does your family know about your exit plan? Are there people you've got children in the business, children outside the business? How are you going to equalize, or do you need to equalize? The idea here is that you do not want if you have children outside the business and children inside the business, you do not want the children outside of the business being able to necessarily ruin the business for the children who are running the business. So the idea here is that some things you need to consider is if there's an ongoing loan, maybe there's a cancellation to buy the business. If there was a loan to buy the business, maybe there's a cancellation of the loan and a first out to all of the children equal the loan. If there's real estate involved in the transaction, I encourage there to be a very long-term, that there'll be a long-term lease that also has a right of first offer in it, as compared to a right of first refusal. Rights of first offer means a right of first refusal on real estate impinges the value of the real estate. Because the fact is, who are you going to find that's necessarily going to do the due diligence to actually make an offer on your real estate if they know that someone else is going to buy it? The alternative to that is what's known as a right of first offer, which says that when the landlord or owner decides he wants to sell, the tenant, which is the family member, has a right to buy it based on appraised value. So he can trigger it, and there usually is a discount that reflects that usually there's no brokerage fee. So that's a piece. The other piece is your estate plan up to date? Who's going to run this company in the case of death? You know, what do you want to happen to the company? Have you told your family? These are all issues that need to come into play in order to grow the value of a business. The owner is probably going to have to invest in the business, and he's going to have to be willing to delegate. These are two main issues that I have seen very successful businesses that still are run like lifestyle, that could be very successful independent businesses that are run like lifestyle businesses because the owner's taking out all the cash regardless of what it is. And if you're not willing to invest financially in your business, you probably will restrict your growth. And as I said, I think you have to be willing to delegate. Once you've done this with all of the partners, you need to make sure the partners have are rowing the boat in the same direction. If one partner is basically very happy as a lifestyle business and the other partner is trying to grow something that's beyond that, they're making contrary decisions. So one of the first things that I do with clients is I have prepared a questionnaire that I give to the clients separately and ask them to fill it out. And then have a meeting with them to make sure that they understand where they both agree on where their company is, but not only where they want to take it over the next 3 to 5 years. Because without that, you can't set measurable milestones to see whether or not the company is getting to its plan. An issue that's ignored a lot in a lot of cases is who will purchase your business. In this area, the prime example I can give you is, I think we find that there are a lot of GovCons out there, small GovCons, that run themselves like a family business. And that's wonderful. However, the real problem is if their potential acquirer is a Booz Allen or CACI, they're going to have a real problem with transitioning their employees to that type of business. So one of the things to consider for valuation purposes is who's going to buy the business, and is your corporate culture matching that business? As I said earlier, we getting the client to run the Monte Carlo analysis is a very key piece of this puzzle. So once you have the analysis, if you're positive, then we can look at legacy planning, tax planning, philanthropic, etc. But if you're negative, how are you going to get there? Can you do it through internal growth? Do you have to be a strategic acquirer? Do you now have to be an acquirer to get to your number in the time frame? If you're going to be a strategic acquirer, what are you going to acquire? Acquisition for the sake of acquisition isn't necessarily going to grow the value of the business. So you need to figure out what do you need to acquire. Secondly is, have you built your due diligence library that a bank is going to want to see if you want to finance this acquisition? Third, have you built your due diligence checklist to be able to successfully integrate the acquisition? If you have not done that, then I've seen many deals with acquirers who have bought companies that were very valuable, and because they weren't ready for due diligence, it took them a lot longer to integrate that business and realize the value of it. How are you going to pay for it? Can you do it through bank financing? What's the bank going to lend you? Are you a C Corp or an LLC where you can use equity as a possible acquisition tool? These are all things you need to look at in doing this. Preparing for the development of your pipeline, development of making sure everything is that you have done, prepared your documents for acquisition. What have you done with regard to making sure the buy-sell agreements are done correctly, where's stock ownership, and what have you done to make sure that you can keep your employees if you're moving in the right direction? Sorry. So I've sort of hit high points on some of these. You need to develop a multi-year plan. You need to evaluate your tax elections. Because here's one of the issues that I talk about a lot with clients is, if you've decided to grow your business and you are going to reinvest in your business, why would you ever be an S Corp or an LLC? Why would you not want to have 75-cent after-tax dollars to reinvest in your business versus the average of 55% that you could reinvest if you're being taxed individually? This is especially true in this area where we have GovCons who have a major advantage because most of them will almost always sell as a stock transaction because buyers are more concerned with novation of government contracts than they are with the liabilities. There are ways to structure a deal to protect the buyer in that case. And also, they have a very predictable revenue stream. I don't know many GovCons that don't know the exact turnaround time from the date they bill their client from the date that client is going to cut them a check. So they have the ability to control their revenue. Lastly, their natural tax year should be September 30th, the end of the government fiscal. That would give them a lot of flexibility with regard to their own personal tax situation because they can move money between December and January as far as how the individuals are going to take it. Make sure your financial statements, there's nothing jumping out on the financial statements that's going to give a bank a problem or an acquirer a problem. We've talked about training, making sure that the integration plan, and everyone in this room knows one thing, and that is that an M&A transaction is generally the largest transaction any one individual will do in their lifetime. They need to hire experts. This is not your routine contracts attorney is not going to be able to give you the best advice. You need to look at all of these issues. If you're looking at an acquisition strategy, things to look at. Can you cross-sell to clients? Are there cross-selling products? How do we value your business, your corporate culture? How do you compare industry-wise, benefits-wise? What is your age of your equipment? Current pipeline is really important for personal service, GovCons, etc. Less important for more hard asset businesses. Certifications and licenses are very valuable. I do a lot of work in the auto body shop industry, and being Tesla certified or Porsche certified can bring a lot of additional money. What's your size limitations? What's your geographical considerations? How bankable is your company? These are all things that will go into a sales strategy. With that, I will turn it over to questions, comments.
Thank you, Stuart, for that. So first question out of my mouth, and I've been asked a couple times, is can we get the slides?
Yep. You will
That's
get the slides, and let me say that the whole point in talking to you, to this group today, is also you are my strategic partners.
Mhm.
I offer complimentary. If you've got a client that you think might be able to use my services, call me, talk. And I do not. In a prior incarnation, I was a stay-home dad for 7 years, and I worked for 9 different law firms as a counsel. I am very good in understanding the limitations of working with multiple law firms and multiple partners. And one of the other roles that I have served sometimes for law firms is sometimes the lawyer will see, the law firm will see the problem that this plan that the entrepreneur is barking down isn't going to work. They don't necessarily want to call that client's baby ugly. The idea that I have been brought in to play the bad cop, to say, this plan isn't going to work, but here's how we can make it work if we do this, this, and this. Law firm gets to do the legal work. I've helped solve the client's problems. I bless the documents, and everyone goes off happy. So the whole concept here is this is still a team process. But I tend to step in a lot earlier than probably most of the other attorneys in this area, because that's the area that I get the most enjoyment out of.
I got it. All right. Any other questions? Because I can go on. Other questions? Questions? All right, Leo, you got your hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, great presentation, Stuart. Just as talking about this, the questionnaire you talked about, Stuart, has been really catalytic to my clients. Can you kind of explain what that does for people's clients and what conversation that starts? I think it's a really important thing for people to know.
The idea here is that I give a questionnaire that basically is divided up into 3 sections. First section is, tell me the strengths of the businesses, weaknesses of the businesses. Tell me your strengths. Tell me your weaknesses. Tell me what you love doing. Tell me what you hate doing. Tell me what you're doing when you're not working. Section 2, talk to me about how you communicate with each other. And the question usually gets a snicker is, compare communication with your partner and that of your spouse. Because communications issues can be obviously problems. Another, and what I didn't say before also, is that points to a problem where I've had situations where one partner says, hey, I love being at work 90% of the time, and the other partner says 50% of the time. My first comment to both of them is, this has got to change, because this is not going to work long run if someone is not happy 50% of the time at something they're doing more than 50% of their time.
I got
Then
you.
lastly, tell me about this company 5 years from now. What's your role in it? What do you do? What do you do? What's your role in it? What's its size? What are you doing if you're not working? With the idea that we are now using this, that each partner has heard the other partner as to what their goals are. And then we can hopefully build consensus around the 3-5-year plan, and the ability to then build the steps to see if we're on plan. I have a slightly different question here for a solo owner, because I still believe it's the same thing. And that is that you need to have a 5-year plan. You need, when you start a business, to assess what its strengths and weaknesses are, where your roles are, and where you want the company to go.
That's good. All right. Ed, you have a question, sir?
Yeah, I have a comment if you want to comment.
Okay, go ahead.
A couple decades ago, we had a managing partner, the founding partner of our firm, that was ready